Hi, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. Look, there is so much happening in the market at the moment that you have probably been seeing all this information flying around and you're kind of going, how do I make decisions? Well, I'm here to help you. My name's Tim Moore. I'm the Global Risk Director here at New World Norm. And this is a familiar face to everybody because I must admit, David, I've had a bit of FOMO seeing you on LinkedIn lately with other presenters. And since the last 4 months, since I last spoke to you, it just seems to be that there is just so much going on. So what's happening, David? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been a crazy year so far. I can't believe we're already mid-April and well into 2024. The year just started off with a bang for Datascan. Started off with NRF. And following that, we had trips out to Portugal, Italy, Netherlands in February. March, we did a tour of the UK. Currently, we at the RFID Journal in Vegas, and then next week we're going to be doing the Retail Tech Show at Olympia in London on the 24th and 25th. At the moment, I'm sitting in Dallas to come back for that show, which I'm really excited about. We're gonna have a stand there together with our partners at Frequential and Altavant from the Middle East, and looking forward to seeing all of our existing customers and speaking to many more at the show, Tim. So it's been a crazy year so far.
Wow, you must be getting the air miles in, right?
Well, yeah, getting to see a lot of places. Would be good to have a peaceful weekend at some stage.
Yeah, well, it was great. I saw you last year in October, actually, where you had your US team in supporting you at Retail Risk, and it was great to just talk to you and your team, and the fact that you've got the support of your American senior leadership is just awesome. And actually, I'm going to Retail Tech as well, so I'm planning on passing by and maybe giving me an update as to what's going on at the moment. But maybe you can just kind of give me an idea of what's happening in the inventory counting world, because a lot changes, especially in this tech world. But how's things for you in Datascan?
Well, Tim, I think that the crux of the matter is it's all about inventory accuracy, and the reality is you can't manage your inventory unless you count it. And whether you in the barcode world still or RFID, what we've seen, it's all about the frequency of counting, because that is when you reset your inventory records, and it's fundamental to enabling omnichannel and delighting your customer ultimately. So we're seeing a heck of a lot of focus on counting more frequently. So there's that previous ECR study showed definitively how counting more frequently can improve your inventory accuracy within a barcode world. So what we're seeing in the barcode world is customers doing category and cycle counts, but not true cycles. They're looking at the fast movers and the high loss sort of SKUs and counting those more frequently, and in doing so, maintaining a better inventory record accuracy over a longer period. But what we're finding as well, Tim, is that there's such a shift towards RFID now. So those companies that haven't yet deployed it are definitely considering it. We're having a lot of discussions in that area. But along with the more frequent counting is the data that goes along with that. You can count more frequently, but if you're not looking at the data and what the data is telling you, it's a bit of a pointless exercise. So we're seeing a big focus on the data and analytics side of things. Well, what is my data actually telling me? So we're kind of seeing the shift, in the market from not only counting more frequently, but I think a lot more retailers are under pressure from a manpower perspective. And that's also driving the shorter counts more frequently. So they don't need that many people. But that in turn is also driving a shift towards the full outsourced inventory counting again. So from from self-scan to full outsourced. And interesting that we are now going into that field in a big way from a Datascan perspective as well, Tim. So
well, that's good. And this is why I love talking about this topic. I mean, as you know, I've said many times it's a favorite topic of mine, but speaking to you, I kind of just think it makes logical sense. You talk about counting the right product, that's so important. Sometimes businesses think they need to do 100% of 100%, and that's not realistic. I think we need to focus in on the high risk products, the high sales lines. And I think you pick up on that. You talk about data as well as a data driver. And I've said this for absolutely years. So this is why I enjoy this conversation, because actually I think when you talk about your product and you've got a great product, line it up with your knowledge base and integrate it into a business. This just must be like, a lovely little smooth integration, having that knowledge base and also a great product. You also talked about one of my favorite subjects as well, which is RFID and the increasing adoption of this. And, I'm working with some great innovators at the moment around RFID. But actually, in doing this, I've also noticed that RFID is like shifting so quickly. What is the big adoption for you as you're seeing it in the marketplace?
It's ultimately omni-channel is really driving that adoption. And but I attended a recent podcast and listened to a white paper that was released by the IHL group. Where their research showed that the difference between early adopters and sort of laggards in the RFID space, and they focused on 2023 from a sales growth point of view, and found that early adopters are now showing up to like a 57% improvement on sales growth over those companies that haven't yet adopted RFID. So I think a lot of the studies that are being done, Tim, and the internal realization that in order to capitalize on the omni-channel world, you really need to have that constant visibility. Counting in a barcode world is just such a time-consuming and onerous, activity. RFID is really the future, and I think all of the studies that are coming out now, Tim, are definitive. It's a no-brainer. If you're in a, and I don't say it's relevant to every vertical. But certainly in the fashion space, if you're not already adopting, you're just not keeping up with, and you're not going to be able to service your customers to their expectations.
I think RFID though is amazing. I mean, here's a classic example where I went to take something back to a shop the other day for my wife who ordered it online. And the lady who served me was amazing, but she said, "Hey, just come across here now. You can do a self-service return."
There we go.
And then my loss prevention hat came on. I was like, "Oh, wow, this is going to be interesting." And actually, because I didn't have paperwork, all we did was scanned the barcode in relation to the product. And it had all the credentials. It knew that it was bought on an account card. It knew it was bought online. It knew when it was delivered. And it was within the time frame to return it. And I've got to be honest with you, I thought it was amazing. But I think what was also amazing for me was, from a customer's perspective, it was easy. I didn't actually have to have really any human interaction. I didn't really have to have any queuing. And seriously, it was seamless. And I mean, I take my hat off to those retailers that are actually integrating it into their customer journey, because you've got a lot of avenues. I think you can use RFID, and you talked as well about the early adopters. And what I'm very pleased at, by the way, to learn that from you, is the early adopters who are now seeing from the IHL white paper that actually there's a return on investment. That is just amazing, right? I mean, give me some indicators. If we're talking about return on investment, how are your clients, how is that looking for their return on investment?
Well, I think there's, from a return on investment really depends really, Tim, on the level of deployment. But, those early adopters are continually expanding their use cases. And I don't want to veer away from the question, because it's somewhat of a hypothetical one, because it would really depend on retailer to retailer and what their driving use cases are. But what's been really encouraging for me, coming from a loss prevention world, is just how more and more stakeholders are finding the value. And more recently, you're finding the loss prevention teams that are using the data for loss detection. So they're now able to start understanding exactly what items have gone missing, where they've gone missing along the supply chain. So where previously we would spend all of our time chasing our tails, trying to understand where items have gone, they are now starting to get those insights and are able to develop their strategy and countermeasures accordingly. So that's the part that really excites me from, like I say, from a loss prevention point of view. But from a return on investment perspective, again, the studies are pretty clear in that regard, Tim. It's pretty rapid that you can see that, and it depends how you measure it. From a customer perspective, like you were saying, the seamlessness of it, of the transactions would really be the indicator.
I mean, I was once listening to somebody give a talk from a major retailer, and their advice was adopt it, start it, and build it, because otherwise it's too much of a big, heavy lift to do it all at once. Is that still the recommendation you would give?
Yeah, Tim. I think it's one of those technologies that you can overcomplicate. You can keep it simple. I think one of the key things to really consider with RFID is your tagging strategy. If you can get items tagged at source, wonderful. You're off to the races. I mean, from that point on out, you can leverage RFID throughout the supply chain. Failing that, there are cost-effective ways to deploy it. I mean, there's some customers that want, the real-time inventory movement throughout the store, and that comes with an investment. But you don't necessarily need that level of investment from a hardware perspective to get going.
Yeah. I think it's exciting times. I mean, you talk about return on investment, you talk about customer journey, you're talking about actually integration into several departments in a business, which gives value across all of the segments within a business. So I actually find it quite exciting from the days when I was, in corporate and trying to get these technologies to fit across multiple functions, which to some degree, I've seen this grow up, because in the early stages, and you'll remember this, David, is that you would buy one singular thing to do one thing. You'd buy it to just do one thing. Now you're buying it to, attract all functions, marketing, customers, sales, return on investment, all these things. Even finance must be loving this as well, because they get a return on investment.
Absolutely, and what's also interesting, Tim, is how different technologies are starting to be merged to give even greater value. That same podcast with IHL, they were talking about how companies are starting to leverage the computer vision technology with RFID, and how that's now even becoming quite transformative. Bringing all of this data together to really help and define and drive that customer journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I've grown up with some really big brands, and I know you have as well. And I was never allowed to get security, loss prevention, profit protection to overlap it into where the customer journey is. So the fact now we're getting technology that actually improves that. We're in a great world where technology is actually going to be, I think, the future of it, even improving the customer loyalty. And who would have thought that years ago, when we thought it was all about just discounting and a few loyalty points? Now there's a lot more to a customer, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. And so many conversations that we're having now, it's moving so quickly, because a lot of the conversations we're having now is all about AI. And I mean, you are really the AI guy, but everyone's looking at how can I apply AI to all of this data that I now have. Databases full of data. What do I need to be doing to leverage AI? And I must say that's something I've been looking at, and your posts have really been piquing my interest in terms of the AI world, because I think along with that comes some risk. but obviously upside too. So what's your view on that, Tim?
Well, look, thanks for asking and bouncing that one back to me, because AI is something which I've been studying since really December 2023. And ironically, we all expect, AI to take off at some stage. It's taking off now. I mean, it's rapid. Yeah. And, I'm going to just say one thing, and AI will do a lot for us. But I think in the early stages, as you adopt it, I would recommend we take a hybrid approach. And that means don't let the AI make the final decision. Yeah, let the AI do the work to enable you to make the decision. And then you push the button to make the decision. So I think that AI has definitely got its place. I think you're so right to point out the risks that are associated to it. And by the way, some companies have already learned the risks to this, where they've fully automated AI recruitment, as an example, and then done a U-turn and rolled it back because it had a bias in the system. Who would have known, right? AI could have a bias. And when I first started learning about that in the Oxford University, I was like, hey, bias in AI, can they really? But actually, yes, it can. And so ultimately, what I'm saying in this world as an expert is make it hybrid. Yeah, make it a part AI, a part human interaction, and don't just cross that line at the moment where you're just relying on the AI to make decisions. Could in fact be detrimental to your business? But honestly, I think the use of AI, and you talk about data, and AI is best served when it's got good, accurate data. So if you're already offering that model with good data sets and you add in AI, I mean, it can start forecasting ahead in so many different ways. Is so incredibly fast at producing results. I remember the days where you used to wait 2 weeks to get a financial result on your stock take. Now with data sets like you're going to get it instantly. But I think the AI world will do two things. It will take all that great work that you've done in terms of technology and data, and on the day you press the button, you get the result because your data sets allow that. And on day one, you'll also have forecasting as to what you need to do next to reduce it. So I think the AI world is going to be a big leverage. And to be quite honest with you, David, I think what I'd also say to people who talk about AI is make sure they work with professional companies like ours, like mine and my business and your business, because you just need somebody to be able to project manage it in a way where you're not just bringing it in-house and trying to build it. Otherwise, it's a bit like building a data set inside Excel, and there's going to be errors. What you need to do is, in terms of talking about the machine learning side of it, who makes a decision, and knowing how AI makes a decision. And yet, there's laws coming out in Europe now about how AIs will come to decision making, because ultimately, if you as a business say, well, the AI made the decision, you're going to still be responsible. So I think there's some legal parameters around it as well. So legal parameters, doing the best. It's going to be super amazing when it really works in a hybrid mode. And actually, to be quite honest, I can't get enough of this subject. And actually, a lot of people are speaking to me about it at the moment. David, thank you so much for joining the podcast again. I'm still going to bring you back again in the future. So you're never going to escape me, because this topic just moves so fast. So wherever you are, I'll find you, no matter where you are in the world. It sounds like you're super busy at the moment. I want to personally thank you, though, Dave, because the inspiration about talking inventory management comes from the fact of your own knowledge base, your own, drive to make it solution orientated, with then the technology of your business. And that, for me, is very important, because you put the customer first in terms of the solution, and then you integrate then the technology, which I think, by the way, is amazing when I meet organizations that do that. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm wishing you well on your journey, and certainly like to see in months ahead how things are going.
Well, thank you, Tim, and it's been a pleasure talking and insightful, learning some of the AI stuff. I'll probably be inviting you to some of our customer discussions soon. But look forward to seeing you at the show, Tim. I believe you're going to be visiting, and look forward to catching up and having a cup of coffee while you're there.
Brilliant. Look, until next time, everybody, let's keep working together and seeing how this industry is going to pan out. It's going to pan out in a really good way. I think David's touched on so many important topics that businesses are going through. And I think survival is not just about spending money. It's about using money smartly to have the right products, to have the right technology, and have the right people around. So I'm a big supporter of this. And until next time, everybody, stay safe, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tim.